What evil prank have you pulled off?
I used to work for a cruise line. The passenger asked if the crew lives on the ship full time. I and my co-worker explained that no, the crew leaves every night to fly back to Miami and then returns each morning. She walked away satisfied. After that cruise was over, our manager was sharing the passenger evaluations with us and was confused about one in particular. It was a woman who had stayed on deck 14 and had complained that she couldn't sleep at night because of the noise of the crew helicopter. Fact 1. 1,200 crew do not leave every night but do live on the ship. Fact 2. That ship didn't even have a helipad. Question: WTF was she hearing every night? Gradually over the course of 2 weeks we moved my coworker's monitors closer to the front edge of the desk, like 1/4 of an inch per move, until they were so close the keyboard barely fit. Stupid small desk. She grumbled near the end. I then moved them back, just as slowly over a few weeks. She never caught on.
Michael.
Over a decade ago, I worked in the warehouse of a Guitar Center. We dealt with inventory, shipping, and receiving. We had a dumpster behind the store in a shared parking lot that people would leave random things in even though it was not a public dumpster. One day we found a broken beach chair in an open cardboard box. The box had a shipping label on it. It was left in such a way that it was easy to assume that the chair box combo was left by the same person. We packed the beach chair in another box and shipped it back to the customer. I wish I was there to see the person's face when they received their trash back by UPS. People in school used to always take my Gatorade. So I took an empty bottle, filled it with dyed salt water, and let them take my drink. Not gonna lie, it was hilarious watching one person to spit salt water in the middle of class only for their unbelieving friend to do the same. Picked out every last marshmallow from my sister's box of Lucky Charms. Then took a photo of me eating a bowl of Just Charms, printed it, and put in the bottom of the bag. I then sealed the bag back up, hot glued the box, and back in the pantry it went.
This isn't a prank. This is the work of Satan.
I lived in Korea for a bit. When my mom came to visit, I told my Korean girlfriend it was an American custom to greet older women by touching elbows. I told my mom the same story about Korean customs. Was a thing of beauty. They were not pleased. One night I replaced every framed object in my boss's office with a picture of me, making a stern face. Posters, certificates, photos, etc. Took like 3 hours because he had like 30 framed things in his office. The next day I made sure I was out doing field work to make him sit with it most of the day. He had a lot of foot traffic to look at his office that day. I remember it like it was yesterday. At summer camp, my cabin's leaders found a little snake that wasn't doing so well, so they decided to put it in an old terrarium in our cabin. Few of the guys were nervous about it. Till the next day when the leaders decided the snake was well enough to release. I asked that they keep quiet about releasing it. When the other guys got back to the cabin and found no snake in the terrarium, chaos ensued. My mom's laptop wallpaper was a picture of her granddaughter. I copied the picture 100 times and made her wallpaper a slideshow of the same picture over and over again. So the file would change but nothing would change visibly on the monitor. The pictures would change every 10 seconds. On one of the images I painted a tiny little curly mustache on her. So randomly for 10 seconds my niece would have a mustache. My mom thought she was either losing her mind or had a computer virus, and every time the mustache popped up, it was gone by the time she tried to show anyone. One year my sister had to move back into my parents' house. I was like 15. She was a little older, mid-20s. April Fool's comes, and I know my sister woke up at like 6 a.m. So I took out the light in the kitchen, put Vaseline all on the refrigerator handle, and put a rubber band around the water gun on the sink. I waited for her to go in the kitchen. I was in my room pretending to be asleep, and all I heard was shoot, followed by a shoot, followed by her screaming my name and waking up my parents. My parents were not happy. Floor was soaked with water, and it woke both of them up. I do it again though. Welded a coworker's boot to the floor. He had worn out the toe caps on his steel-toed boots. while he was making a weld kneeling inside a large piece of equipment on steel. I put a small tack weld on his boot so he had trouble breaking it loose and getting up.
OSHA would like to know your location.
A friend kept trying to steal my sushi on my plate at a sushi restaurant. So while she was looking, I stuffed it full of wasabi, put a bit of fish back on top to cover my tracks, and pretended to not be looking when she started reaching towards it. She tossed it into her mouth, started chewing down, and I just swung my head towards her to say, "You ducked up." 5 minutes of coughing, muffled screaming, and copious amounts of water later, she had learned her lesson. Working in a hot factory, supervisor and job planner in this enclosed cubicle with a window AC unit in the middle of the shop. AKA, nice 68-degree Fahrenheit in there, while we sweat our ash off in 95 to 110-degree Fahrenheit heat. Kinda hot and fissy, and always flies around. I kept grabbing the flies alive, walking into the cubicle to ask a usually legit question, or say I'm just cooling off and opening my hand behind my back. I put 14 of those duckers in there in one shift. He never did catch on. I was doing it, and the planner was fissy swatting around. There were so many flies in there. Supervisor was cleaning out every crevice, thinking some food is supporting life now somewhere.
You were planting bugs in their office.
Duel was harassing my ex because he used to have her cell phone number. Was being a real ducking creep. Anyways, I created an email address, signed up to Kijiji, and placed an ad offering an 3D TV for free with some excuse about a bad breakup and not wanting her to get it. I asked people to only text or call. I then went to bed and forgot all about it until the next day at work. I get a text from my ex asking if I had done something on Kijiji. The dude was begging her to take the ad down and apologizing. I checked the email and there were 5 pages of responses, even though I had told them not to email, but to call or text. Dude's phone must have been ringing constantly. I took the ad down and she never heard from him again. I used to work at a science tutoring center when I was in college and my gap year before professional school. One of the things we taught very often was anatomy. So naturally we acquired a few skeletons and various skulls with some variation in how they looked or were marked, etc. Well, I was closing one night, and I knew my coworker was opening the next morning early. So before I locked up, I assorted all of the skeletons and skulls in a welcome party near the front door. I had one immediately at the opening of the only door into the room, with several backup skeletons and skulls just behind at a table, together watching on. The best part was that you have to turn on the lights manually and that switches immediately to the side of the door opening. So when she reached down to turn on the lights, she had to come face to face with some lifeless skeleton skull in the middle of the shady opening. Needless to say, she screamed. And it was loud enough to make our boss come to see if she was okay. Woke up to some colorful text LMAO. Still proud of that one, honestly. Once I asked a friend for another friend's phone number. He gave me a teacher's number. I then went on to send multiple messages in a fake angry tone to my unsuspecting teacher. Duck that diabolical genius of a friend. One summer in college, I worked in the registrar's office, registering all the incoming freshmen. Prof, who was a mentor to me, was teaching freshman seminar and asked me to handpick a class for her. Train of students, ISITs, whatever. So I did. 15 students, all named Sarah. I made fake versions of Internet Explorer that turned your PC off when started in the ICT class at school.
I print screened my friend's desktop and hid a bunch of his icons once. He thought his computer just wasn't responding.
Oh God, I thought about that for a second and truly, sincerely, and with all my heart, duck you. 2 of my friends have never met each other. Before they spoke, I told both of them that the other is a bit deaf. They shouted at each other for a few minutes before they realized that I'm an asshole. The A.M. supervisor at my office is a short little man who likes to work from a laptop on a rolling adjustable desk. For over a year, I gradually raised the height of this desk and watched as he went from sitting on a stool to an adjustable tall task chair to standing. Last week he removed the wheels from the desk to lower the height. He doesn't realize it's adjustable. I farted under the covers, then pointed at the ceiling above my GF, and shouted spider. So she'd throw the blankets over her head. Later when she told her parents, that turned out to be the thing that earned her dad's respect for me. Made him laugh so hard he needed an inhaler. I got a Harry Potter calligraphy set for my birthday years ago. It had Hogwarts marked paper, envelopes and everything. My brother ate all of my birthday chocolates from an end that night, so I plotted my revenge. Next September I copied out Harry's letter word for word in green ink, only changing the name. I let him believe he was going to magic school for 2 whole weeks before I crushed it. At my sister's swim meet, I found an ice machine tucked away in a garage-looking thing. So I started collecting the ice and somehow managed to put ice in nearly everyone's shoe at the meet. It was a wild, beautiful moment of pure confusion and chaos. Everyone started freaking out, and no one knew it was the little shy girl who secretly enjoyed turmoil.
Are you the little girl who is smirking evilly in front of a house that's on fire meme?
I convinced a coworker for 2 months that the guy she had sat next to for 3 years was named Jay, not Dave. They worked in different departments but sat 3 feet away from each other for years. I got the guy in on it. And his manager. Then later, his supervisor, group manager, division manager, and entire department. They bought him new nameplates for his desk, changed stuff in the system, so his name would print as Jay, etc. The only thing they didn't change was his phone number and email. She thought she was going crazy, and when I finally told her, she sucker punched me in the stomach and dropped me to my knees. She was a personal trainer in her off hours, so she got me good. Totally worth it, and I laugh about it to this day over a decade later. My freshman year of high school, the big craze at my school was this 50-pack of Crayola markers. I didn't get why exactly, but fads are fads. A friend of mine had a pack that she was obsessed with. She had them organized in the packet like a perfect color gradient order. So of course anytime she left the room I'd mix her markers up, so she had to fix them when she came back. This went on for a month, maybe. And one day in study hall she leaves. And before she leaves, turns to me and she says, "Don't rearrange my ducking markers." So I did. I rearranged the caps. You see, these markers were solid white apart from the caps and a little tiny nib at the other end. She got about halfway through fixing them when she noticed she was holding a marker with an orange cap and a turquoise nib. I can tell you the joy I experienced when she looked at me and said, "You didn't even move the markers, did you?" I laughed so hard I was asked to leave the study hall. She didn't talk to me for 2 weeks. 100% worth it. Flipped the lights on and off while my sister and friends played with a Ouija board. Hasn't quite been the same since.
Are you alive or dead? This is an important question.
My dad said that he and his mates picked up their very drunk, passed out friend with the chair he was on, put it in the back of a ute, drove him to the middle of nowhere and left him there, chair and all. Not sure if this will be seen, but my best New Year's was that of 1999. I was 9 years old at the time, and I worked together with my dad to pull off the greatest prank in history. A few minutes before midnight, I synced up a wristwatch with the countdown on TV. My dad pointed me in the direction of the breaker, which was in our garage, and showed me the lever to pull, which would cut all power to the house. Now I don't know if you remember the hype, but the year 2000 was supposed to destroy all of our computers and technology, sending us back to the Stone Ages. So the moment grew closer as I watched the seconds tick by on my wristwatch. It soon became apparent that I wouldn't need it, as I could hear all my relatives inside counting down. 10, 9, 8, 2, 1. I pulled the lever at the perfect timing and everything went black. The first thing I heard was from my aunt. "Oh my God, it hit! Y2K hit!" I was only going to leave the power out for 10 seconds or so, but the lever was stuck and I couldn't get it back up for about 2 minutes, during which, the whole time I heard my family freaking out. Then eventually they looked outside and started to wonder why our neighbors still had power. Thinking back, I really wish we would have recorded this. Probably could have won $10,000. I saw a post about switching around mayo and vanilla pudding. Emptied out a mayo jar and cleaned it well. Filled it with a few pots worth of vanilla pudding and took it to uni. Our uni is very lax about eating during the lectures, so I waited until midday when I was sitting in the middle of all my friends, and they were all eating their lunch. Do me taking out the jar of mayo and a spoon, popping the lid and taking a big ol' spoonful with a grin. At first only the closest ones noticed, but after the third spoon it was like everyone was frozen around me. Pin drop silence. After the fifth spoon someone faux retched, and the spell was broken. The looks of sheer terror and disgust was well worth the pain of eating vanilla pudding. I'm a chocolate kinda gal. When my brother and I were in middle school, my brother liked to skateboard with our next door neighbor. One day, my brother and the neighbor took the sheet of plywood from under my brother's upper bunk bed. No one slept in the upper bunk. Out of the house and started making a skateboard ramp out of it in the neighbor's adjacent yard. My parents had explicitly told him that he was allowed to do that. Now, in my defense, my brother teased me unmercifully, to the point of tears, on multiple occasions. So keep in mind that he had had it coming for a long time. Anyway, an evil little plan hatched in my brain. I ran to the upstairs window and yelled down at them. Guess what? Mom knows everything and she is so mad. Then I slammed the window shut and ran to the stairs and waited while watching my mom read the newspaper. A few moments later, my brother walks in the front door looking worried and says, "Mom, I'm so sorry." My mom, who had no idea what was going on, said, "About what?" while slowly putting the newspaper down. "For making a skateboard ramp out of the wood from the bunk bed." You did what? At that moment, a wave of shock and realization swept across my brother's face and our eyes met. I let out the biggest and vilest little sister cackle and ran into my room. We are adults now and still laugh about it from time to time. I created a fake uniform policy poster for my high school. Was perfect, but people were idiots, so they fell for it. Took everyone about a week to actually read the poster and see that it was obviously fake. Some people still showed up on the first day wearing the uniform that I designed. In high school I went into the boys' bathroom and replaced all the soap in the dispensers with pancake syrup.
Adult version is to take a bottle of hand sanitizer, clean it out, fill with KY jelly, leave in a public location.
In the break room, called my coworker in. I had a chair, plastic cup with an inch of water in it, and a broom in the corner. I asked him to help me stick the cup on the ceiling. Climbed on the chair, and he held the cup up with the broom. Then I said, "Want to see a cool trick?" Climbed off the chair and walked away with it. You could hear him cussing and yelling out in the parking lot. I went to a party at someone's house whom I didn't like. First thing I did was go into the bathroom and turn their toilet paper around so the roll was on backwards. Everyone who went to the bathroom there saw what kind of Neanderthals the homeowners were.
Calm down, Satan.
Kept both regular and Honey Nut Cheerios at the house because my mom and my dad each ate one type and hated the other. Unless you look close, they appear the same. So one day I switched the boxes. The looks were priceless. I put hot sauce on my little brother's toothpaste one morning when we were kids. He apparently thought he was being poisoned. At my high school senior class picnic, way back in the late 80s, I spread a rumor that the brownies I brought were pot brownies. Half a dozen kids went to the nurse because they were so stoned. I worked at a fast food where the boss was too cheap to get AC installed. The super hot summer days we would all sweat so much that we could wring sweat out of our uniforms. There was this boy who I had a love-hate relationship with. We would always prank each other, but mine were always tame. Until one day, he left his drink in the back while he was flipping burgers. I grabbed a vinegar packet, cut open a corner, and put a straw directly in it, and exchanged it with the straw from his drink. Moments later, I was in the front of the store and I heard him spit and scream my name while calling me a bench. He still high-fived me. Whenever I was playing hide and seek, I'd place stuffed animals in certain locations, such as under the covers on a bed, to make it look like a child was hiding there. I made sure to always hide nearby so I could see or hear the other kids' reaction when they pulled up the covers to see a pile of stuffed animals. It was so funny. peanut butter on the light switch of the men's room at work. The extra crunchy and nutty kind?